rolling.
Yeah.
Good afternoon. Welcome to Tag Gallery. I'm Bruce Sanders. I'm an expressionist and symbolist painter. Describing my work, it's basically described by the words emotion, color, texture, line, and form. My show is entitled After the Fires, A New Beginning. And it's, as you could guess, it's somewhat of a personal story, but I share this with maybe 20,000 Southern Californians in the Los Angeles area, people who've experienced the devastation and trauma of the Palisades fire affecting not only in the Palisades, but Malibu, and then the Eaton fires affecting Pasadena and the surrounding areas. So my home of 45 years in Malibu was lost in the Malibu fire. And my family, my son, my granddaughter, our dogs, we had to run for our lives. I lived there for 45 years. I'm a widower. And I lost over 200 paintings, drawings, fine prints, all my equipment. And sitting in a hotel for a couple of weeks, I really felt that might be the end of my painting. I thought I was simply out of bullets and didn't have any more in me. But as we started to recover, we found a lovely, funky little cottage home in the Palms area with a ADU in back, an old back house that we just converted to an art studio. I started painting. And at first, I honestly didn't know if I would have enough for the show, but I produced so much, I've got some for next year's show. And I think what I share with non-artists, but people who've gone through this, is the will to go on despite tragedy. A lot of times in tragedy, people look for meaning. Was this some punishment from God? Is it a symbol from God? I don't think so. In fact, my painting here, which is the first one that I did after the fire, is called God Was Not in the Fire. And it comes from an interesting story in 1 Kings 19, 11 to 13, about the prophet Elijah, which I think most people have heard of. But Elijah was struggling with the evil queen Jezebel, who was out to kill him. So he ran away to the mountains and looked for a big symbol from God, a big sign. And he experienced a great wind, but the Bible says God was not in the wind. And then an earthquake, but the Lord was not in an earthquake. And then fire, but God was not in the fire. But then Elijah heard a small voice, and then he knew what to do. And this is my interpretation of that biblical story. It's kind of a crazy painting, but it was a crazy time. And I think what artists have in common, we have many media, many styles, but we have something to say. And this was what I had to say. I don't know if anybody else could understand the message. Looking back at this painting, I'm not sure I understand completely, but there you have it. That's God Was Not in the Fire. And this one, and you can see the colors. There's a lot of red in here. And remember what I told you, that I express my emotion with color. And so this is on the run. And this is the way it felt. We were all on the run. And then when we went for places to try to rent, we kept on running into all the families from the Malibu and the Palisades together. I thought we were going to have to form a hostel and live in a commune. So in any case, this strikes me as pretty hectic. To me, it's got a little bit, looking back at it, people have said, it looks a little Chagall-ish. You know, people are floating, there's no gravity. Everybody asks about birds. One of my friends is a literalist. He's a hard-nosed attorney. And I won't describe exactly what he says about the bird, but it begins with F. And he says, what are those F birds doing in your paintings? Well, to me, it's a symbol, a celestial symbol, and a witness to the human drama. Not judging, but empathizing. Even the bird is crying here in this painting. The next painting is called Missing Home, which I think you can understand. And the eyes are, when something like this happens, you feel so vulnerable. The figure is nude, and you feel vulnerable, and you feel like the world is watching you. The flowers symbolize my home. My late wife was a gardener. She made the house beautiful for many, many years. She loved trees. And the flowers are symbolic to me of all the good things in life. The beauty, despite the fragility, and the hope. If you have flowers, kind of hard to be depressed. Oh, there's flowers. It cheers you up. I use a lot of gold in my work, and it kind of symbolizes a sacred color. This is called the Dream, and this is from the prophet Ezekiel, who truly was the weirdest. I think everybody of all religious backgrounds will agree Ezekiel was kind of a weird guy. And he dreamt of chariots in the heavens. He described what would be considered a UFO, and he dreamed of these large angelic creatures with eyes in their wings. And even this creature is crying, and the eyes are crying about what's happening. This is Dreaming of Home. And there's one in the window that's Dreaming of Home too. These two kind of go together. They're called the colors of my emotions. The one thing I think we all know, when the mind suffers, the body cries out. And a lot of times we can see a person's emotions superficially. If they're angry, if they're embarrassed, they get red in the face. If they're frightened, they may get very pale. And this is kind of that kind of interpretation. This multitude of emotions that I'm sure all the people who fled felt. Gratitude that they made it out alive, fear, anger, fright, all those things. This is Dreaming of Flowers, and it always goes back to, I try to memorialize my wife's life through her love of flowers and trees and the garden, and it means a lot to me. And in my tradition, we don't say rest in peace. We say, may her memory be a blessing. So I try to make Barbara's memory a blessing. This may or may not need translation, depending on your background, but this figure, it's entitled Oy vey. So if you need translation, the loose translation is woe unto me. But most people know oy vey when they see it. This is from the book of Isaiah, probably one of the most well-known prophets. And in this, the title is, I shall refine you in the fires of affliction. And we know this. You can see this figure who's also nude, who's very susceptible, is in the midst of a firestorm. And it's a metaphor. In our lives, we always are struggling with something. Another metaphor is the Japanese katana, the Japanese sword, which is the strongest, most flexible, beautiful, polished, sharpest edge in the world. And how do you get that? You get that from a shapeless, ugly clump of iron, and you beat it, and you fire it, and you polish it over and over again until it becomes stronger. And in the Japanese culture, it talks about polishing your personality. But at first comes the fire, and down here, this is a few of the last ones. I use a lot of texture in my painting. I mix texture additives to the paint. And I've done a lot of series on the Tree of Life, which means a lot to me. It represents tradition, the roots, the stability, the family, the heritage, and then the blossoming, the future, the next generation. It's hopeful. Where flowers are beautiful, they're fragile and they die. So we have to be in the moment to appreciate them. But the trees most likely will outlive us, and they may, outlive our descendants. So there's a lot of experience. You almost say, tree, what you've been through, give me some hints. So that's the golden tree of life. The most important thing to remember, is not stuff that's lost. If you've got your life, you've got hope. That's all you could ever ask for in this life. And love, there's no greater gift than to be loved and to love people. And this is simply called the kiss. These are actually going to be a preview of my next show. This is called just White Flowers, and this is called Flowers of Passion. And I plan to do kind of a Zen-like, understated, maybe even Asian feel to the magic of flowers and mystical trees. So, hopefully people will relate to this in some way. That's my goal. My goal isn't to say, oh, this guy made flowers just like the flowers in my backyard. Matisse said he was grateful for cameras. Now, this took the weight off the artist to make something exactly like it is in nature. That's not my goal. My goal is to look inward. Not a clinical diagnosis, but a spiritual investigation. What's inside? What do people feel? And that's what I try to do. So thank you for listening. I hope it helps.
Very nice.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any questions before we?
Well, Bruce, first of all, I want to applaud your amazing resilience after what you went through, and the fact that you produced such dynamic, fascinating work. And I do have a question. Tell me a little bit about the fact that your colors, which have got so much life to them, are chosen to be what they are. For example, there's a predominance of a red, a pink red, but it's a very vibrant one, as is the blue, and as are the rest of your colors. Is there a particular line of thought in why you choose these colors, or is that just how it evolves?
The colors choose me.
Okay.
I never, or rarely ever, plan a painting. I start with the most intimidating thing an artist can have. Now, if it's a poet or a writer, it's blank piece of paper. For an artist, for me, it is a blank canvas. I'm highly intimidated by a, starch white canvas. And I may approach it, I may go away, I approach it, I go away. I never know when I'm going to start on my work. That's why I personally like my studio near my home, because many times I get up in the middle of the night. I do a lot of night painting. After Barbara got sick, I had to take care of her, and I had to be on vigil at night. And then at the same time, I was caring for my newborn granddaughter, and I was on vigil for her, when she'd wake up. So I lost my capacity to really sleep after she passed. And that's when I went back to art school, and I just utilized that energy. I'd get up and I'd paint. And I'd start with my mood. The mood determined my color. I really didn't think about it. And I always start not with a composition, but with color and texture. And the ultimate painting may be a different color, but that's where I started from that. So if there, as you could really kind of empathize, this red, I wanted to find the most intense, crimson, because that's when I closed my eyes at night, I saw fire. And this is what I saw when I left my house, is, it wasn't a friendly color. I turned it into passion. And there's a particular, the inside baseball part of this, from artist to artist, this is, my favorite brand of paint is Golden Brand. And they have a fluorescent magenta and a fluorescent pink that, when mixed together, possibly under the influence of Jameson Irish whiskey in the middle of the night, it's something cool happens sometimes.
Sure.
I look at it in the morning, and it may be terrible, and I may decide, wow, that didn't work, and I paint over it. And what I've learned, in my old world, being a surgeon, the mantra was, don't screw it up, don't make a mistake, don't get a line off anywhere. And in this world, my mentor, who was my art teacher, he said, forget that, screw it up, don't worry about making a failure. It's just paint over it. So the more uninhibited, it seems like the better result. At least that's my interpretation. But, on the final lesson of this, I'm 82 years old. As you two guys know, I was very ill last year. Very, about a year and a half ago. I almost, bought the farm, as they say. And when you are healthy, every human being has 5 or 10 problems. Oh, I got a problem with this, I got a problem with that, I got this worried about, this I'm angry about. When you are really mortally ill, you got one problem. So the thing I've learned being healthy again is gratitude. I feel so blessed being an artist to be able to share my work with folks, have fun, and it's a legacy thing for me. As you two guys know, my son and my granddaughter are big supporters of mine. We live together, and although my teenage granddaughter is my worst critic in art, she gives me the thumbs down a lot. It's a legacy. So I'm very grateful, and anything I make off of these will go to, God willing, her college, and for college expenses. And so, like I say, and just one final thing, one of the best things that's happened to me at TAG is meeting great guys here, like Emil and Mark and some of the other folks. This is a community of artists. They're not only they're talented, they're good human beings, and this is kind of my home away from home. I've never been in a gallery, I've been in other galleries, but this has got a lot of compassion and love, and makes me really happy, you know, I'm happy to come here. So, thank you again for listening.
All right, we got it.